Hey guys, Cruiser67 here. I'm gonna bring you this video. I was, I just realized today that during my last Fire King video, I totally promised you guys that I would bring you guys a video about how to beat them, how to side deck against them, against Fire Kings, and I completely forgot to do that. So, if it's any consolation, well, here it is. So today we're gonna be talking about how to beat Fire Kings, well, like what to side deck against them, what to main deck against them. And I just put Garunix here just because Garunix is Garunix, right? So in the last video that we talked about Fire Kings, we talked about how they're so great. And now before I get into how to beat them, I just want to talk about both Solemns against like mostly Garunix, and against all Fire Kings in general. Let's go with warning, because warning is the primary. A lot of people have an issue, don't realize that this happens. This is how it is. So if you read the warning text, is when a monster is summoned, or when a spell trap card is, or a monster effect that includes the effect that it would special summon a monster, you pay 2,000 life points. You negate the summoner activation if you do destroy the card. Pretty straightforward, right? Now a lot of people, when playing against Fire Kings, think that if you just warning or if you judgment their Garunix, or if you their Garunix, it's okay. Like, it's not going to get its effect or anything. I'm here to tell you that that's wrong. Grunix's effect clearly states that during the next standby phase after it's destroyed by a card effect and sent to the graveyard, it gets special summoned. Now, what does warning do exactly? It negates the summoner activation, and if you do, destroy that card. So, if they summon Garunix and you use a warning or a judgment on it, it still destroys Garunix, technically triggering its effect. So Judgment and Warning do nothing against Fire Kings. I'm going to tell you guys right now, because I know a lot of people are confused about that or don't understand why that happens. It's just because it destroys it in the end. It destroys the card in the end, and that's what triggers Runic's effect. Whether or not it was summoned is completely out of the question. Although if you try summoning with Onslaught and then you warning them, that's okay, because Grunix is never brought to the field. So anyways, let's get into how to beat Fire Kings. And I was looking through cards. I thought of 5 sort of different ways that you could stop Fire Kings from doing their things. And the first one, doing their shenanigans, and the first one I decided we're going to talk about is banishing them. Because a clear point in all of the Fire King monsters' effect is that when they're destroyed by card effects and sent to the graveyard, that's the big thing. If they're sent to the graveyard, then they get their effects. If they're banished, they don't get their effects. So, I'm going to start with cards that a lot of people main deck already, so like Bottomless, always a great card. Deep Prison, again, another great card. It's like the Sakuretsu armor of banishing. So these two, people already main deck them, and it's already still a really good, it's always a really good option against Fire Kings. I mean, sure, Bottomless you can only run 2. Deep Prison, you can side deck extra Deep Prisons. Like, I only run 1 Deep Prison in my wind-up build. So yeah, and I know MST is a card, but like still, these things are your best options against them. So then, as far as stuff that you can side deck, Macrocosmos and Dimensional Fissure are very, very good cards against them, because like both Macrocosmos and D-Fissure, what they do is that, like for D-Fissure, any monster that's sent to the graveyard's banished instead, and Macro is like any face-up, any cards to the graveyard are banished instead. Now, like, obviously, Macro Rabbit already plays this. If you play, like, something like Windups like I do, I can side in two-dimensional prisms, because when you detach an overlay unit, it technically doesn't go to the graveyard as a monster. It goes to the graveyard as an overlay unit. So, my monsters don't get banished, not affecting my rat plays and stuff. So, if you run a deck that can, exceeds a lot, you can use D-Fissure. And again, if you use Macrocosmos, if you use Rabbit, you can totally do that. Again, great. They won't try to go for their Garunix plays or their whatever plays, because they know that their monsters are gonna get banished if you play this against a Fire King deck. I mean, sure, if you play D-Fissure over Macro, D-Fissure's there. It's like your opponent knows what you're playing. At least Macro you can set it, but not a lot of people can play Macro. And sure, again, like I said, MST is a card. I mean, these are both continuous, so if they use an MST on it, they won't help. But that's what you run Dark Bribes and Judgments for, right? To keep these things alive. Next, more side deck stuff, or main deck. Caius. If you run like a Chaos deck, you can play Caius. Again, Caius banishes. Sure, you don't get that extra 1,000 burn damage because it's not a dark monster, like if you're targeting Garunix, but at least you get to banish it. And then DD Crow. I think DD Crow is an underrated card. It used to be side decked in a lot. But now it's lost popularity. I still think DD Crow is a very good side deck option. Just because the ability to banish stuff, and it's a quick effect, so during either player's turn when you banish something, uh, it's really key. Like, you could stop Reborn plays, because Reborn has to target, and then if you deprison their target, it's useless. So DD Crow is really good, especially against Fire Kings, against a lot of graveyard stuff like Dark World. Like if you DD Crow their Grapha or whatever. Actually, on a note for things that when they're discarded to the graveyard, if you DD Crow something when it's discarded, it technically didn't go to the graveyard, therefore not activating its effect. So this works against Dark Worlds when they discard to get, like, if they want to pop with Grapho, or if they want to get something with Snow. If they discard it and then you DD Crow before it hits the graveyard, in quotation marks, it won't get its effect. The same thing goes for Mermails. Like if they want to summon Megalo and they discard Gundy and let's say another Megalo to get it back, if you DD Crow Gundy, it technically hasn't gone to the graveyard, so therefore it does not get their effects. So yeah. So all these things, banish, again. If you can't play, like D-Fissure or Macrocosmos, anybody can play DD Crow. That's why I think DD Crow is a big one in the banishing area. So that's the first way I thought of getting rid of beating Fire Kings. The second one was just negating their effects, because all their effects activate in the graveyard, right? And if you can negate their effects, it's K. So, like, Soul Drain, I thought was a good option. Soul Drain, what you do is, well, you pay 1,000 life points, and monsters that are banished, as well as monsters in the graveyard, can't activate their effects that start a chain. Now, to my knowledge, all of the Fire King monsters' effects start a chain, but you totally feel free to check that out and send it back to me. So I think that's why I think Soldier is a good card to play. The only downside to Soul Drain is that you have to pay 1,000 life points, and then if you pay 1,000 life points and then they chain MST to it, it doesn't really do anything. You just paid 1,000 life points for nothing. A more viable option, I think, is something like Debunk. Debunk is a totally underrated card. Like, no one talks about Debunk, but it's so good this format. If you don't know what it does, it negates the activation of an effect monster's effect that activates in the hand or graveyard and remove it from play. Just let that sink in a little bit. Not only, like, if you play this against a Fire King deck, not only does it stop Garunix's effect of coming back and destroying shit on the field, it removes it from play. So it does the job of negating and banishing at the same time. But, like, there are all kinds of utilizations for this. You can stop this against Dark World. Just is insane. Like, you stop their searches with Snow, you stop their searches with Graphite, you remove them from play. The only way they can get them back is with Trance Archfiend. Also against what's it called? Mermails. You have to against Mermails. You have to reveal Megalo in your hand before summoning it, and that's its effect. So you can actually go and debunk the effect of Megalo in hand to reveal it to do that, and then remove from play their Megalo. Also against High Priestess, they have to reveal High Priestess and then reveal the 3 spell cards to do that. That's its effect. So it activates in the hand and removes it from play. This thing, it also stops Veiler, since Veiler activates in hand. It stops Maxi, because Maxi activates in the graveyard. Debunk is a very versatile card, and I think it's actually really up there. I actually run a Debunk. I side in a Debunk because of its versatility. I mean, it's so great. So yeah. Next, I thought the Huge Revolution is over. This is a really old card. It's kind of like Starlight Road, but it doesn't summon Stardust at the end of it. So what it does is, when a spell, a trap, or monster effect is activated that destroys 2 or more cards in the field, negate the activation and banish it. This is specifically against Garunix. I mean, when it comes back and destroys all of the monsters on the field, right? You can run Starlight Road, but this over Starlight Road is better, because Starlight Road actually negates it and destroys it, which makes it come back next turn. And what Huge Revolution does is that it at least negates it and banishes it. So in that way, it's kind of like debunk. And again, like banishing those Garunixes are super good against those Fire King decks. Also, Starlight Road is only for cards on your side, 2 or more cards that you would control. So if they control monsters while they do that, because Huge Revolution is over, is only 2 or more cards on the field. So let's say you have 1 monster on the field and they have 1 monster on the field, and they summon Garunix, try to destroy all 2 of them. No, you just activate Huge Revolution's over, negates it, banishes it. Perfect. Another card that negates effects is Abyss Dweller. Abyss Dweller is a super great card. It's super easy to make. It's only 2 level 4 monsters. And what's its effect is, it's a quick effect, so you can activate it during either player's turn. You detach a material, and any card effects that activate in your opponent's graveyard can't be activated this turn. So that stops all of your Fire King player opponents' cards, because they all activate in the graveyard. So again, negating effects is a really great way to do it. And Abyss Dweller is certainly a great card, because like I said, it's really easy to make. It's just a rank 4 with 2 level 4 monsters. Another way I thought of maybe getting Fire Kings out is just returning their cards to hand. Like, so Compulse is so good, because Compulse is chainable. Compulse, you can compulse your own monsters, but really, sending their Garunix back to their hand is really hurtful for a Fire King player, unless they run trade-in. I mean, which some of them do, but a lot of them don't. A lot of Fire King players don't run trade-in because they figure that their Garunixes are gonna be in the graveyard anyways. So a Garunix in the hand, unless they're playing OCG and they have Yaksha, is basically a dead Garunix. And unless they have another way of getting into the graveyard, it's dead in their hand. So Compulse is a really great card, I think. And this is a super old card, back to square one. No one runs this, but it's just an option. I mean, you discard a card from your hand and you return 1 monster on the field to the top of the deck. If you draw into Garunix and you have nothing to get rid of it with, again, like I said, it's a dead Garunix. You've got nothing with it. So that's why I thought this would be pretty good. Another card that does the same thing as that is Rise of the Storm Monarch. When it's tribute summoned, it returns a target to the target on your opponent's side of the field to the top of the deck. So again, sending them cards to hand or to the top of the deck is again what I thought would be a cool idea, because, like I said, drawing into Garunix or having Garunix without an option to get rid of it and send it to your graveyard, it's not very good at all. And then just 2 random things, like if you're playing Evil Swarms, Ophion. I mean, Ophion is the answer to every deck, right? Since if it's on the field with Xyz material, no player can special summon a level 5 or higher monster. I mean, Ophion's Ophion. And then one last thing I thought, Madolches would be a very interesting matchup against Fire Kings, because with Tiramisu, you can shuffle cards back into the deck, which I think is pretty hurtful actually to Fire Kings, because if you shuffle those things back into the deck, again, you have the possibility of drawing into them, and they don't get their effects since they were not even sent to the graveyard at all. So yeah, guys, this is basically my thoughts on how to deal with Fire Kings. The top three ways of getting rid of them, of stopping them, I would say, is banishing them, or stopping their effects in the graveyard, or just sending them back to hand. Key cards, like I said, I'm just gonna go over key cards, would be like Bottomless, D-Prison, DD Crow, really good side deck choice, Debunk, another really good side deck choice, and Compulse. So, yeah, that's basically it, guys. Throw in your own comments on your own experience against Fire Kings and how you were able to defeat them, or how they beat you and it infuriates you and stuff in the comment section below. So that's basically it, guys. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. Hope you liked the video. Cruiser67 signing off.